In fact, the game wouldn't be worth playing if we knew what was going to happen.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Red-Black Amped Lurrus in the Timeless format. Now the Amped portion of this deck is Amped Raptor, new card, 2 mana 2/1 first strike. When it enters battlefield we get 2 energy. Then it exiles cards from the top of our deck until it hits a non-land, and we can play it for free if we can pay its mana value in energy. And so by playing it in a Lurrus shell, it basically functions as a baby Bloodbraid elf. It can hit and cast anything in here because it's all low mana value impactful stuff, such as Orcish Bowmasters, needs no introduction, really strong card. Dreadhorde Arcanist, which is super strong, I think it's underplayed in Timeless, but this, when it attacks, can flashback stuff like Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Bolt, Kroxa, Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Channeler, as well as a selection of discard and removal. And of course, Mishra's Bauble, which works well with Lurrus and Dragon's Rage Channeler. So it's just a bunch of really strong cards and hoping to just outvalue and grind out the opponent. Let's jump into some games. Alright, so a solid hand right here. Double Thoughtseize feels pretty nice. We will want to find another threat besides Bowmasters, but it's a start. And Kahira Companion on the other side could mean a couple things, but as we can see here, we're playing against control. Now, we do have another Thoughtseize, but the opponent does have a strong hand. So I decide Mana Drain is probably the most dangerous thing at this point in the game, because it could vault them up to something and just mess up our plan of disrupting them. Now I set an upkeep stop, but anyway, I just wanted to Bauble post fetch. Okay, so we see, because that way we maintain perfect information for our Thoughtseizes, and we draw another Thoughtseize off the Bauble. So the question is, I mean, it seems pretty clear we double Thoughtseize this turn. So we're gonna go ahead and crack our fetch and get a shock land. And basically the question is, what single card should we leave them with? And thinking through it, it seems like the most potent cards against us are Leyline Binding, which is like potentially a 1 mana answer, and Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, which could be a real problem if they protect it. Now Solitude is no slouch either. It's less potent without a pitch card, but it's still pretty relevant when hard cast, but it's something that our removal really lines up well against. So Dreadhorde Arcanist is a really strong draw. It seems like the best of our 2 mana threats to lead on, because it can start flashing back Thoughtseizes and just basically lock the game up immediately. So that was the rationale, though I could see an argument for Raptor or Bowmasters, because they're both very strong. Alright, so opponent's going to Sanctuary Mana Drain back to the top of their deck, and they managed to find a Prismatic Ending, which is really tough. And I mean, they're going to be finding Mana Drain next turn, and not great for us. We're going to grab a Surveil land here and see if we can make something happen. Dragon's Rage Channeler seems good enough to keep, especially because it allows us to like profitably double spell next turn by playing 2 threats, and opponent has 1 unknown card, so we'll have to see if they can stop any of this. And we're just gonna run out an Amped Raptor and hope we hit something nice. We hit a Bolt, not amazing. Would have loved a threat instead, but at least it gets us a Dragon Rage Channeler Surveil. Takenuma doesn't seem like what we want. Getting an instant in the bin gets us Delirium, so alright, so opponent passes. So now they have hardcast Solitude up. So it doesn't match up well against our creature since Raptor is first strike. Alright, so opponent is going to exile Dragon's Rage Channeler, decide to use this opportunity to Surveil before it gets swords, essentially, or solituded. Ragavan seems like a good card to draw also, because it's a very potent threat that is not super useful to mana drain. So that was my rationale there. Like I can dash Ragavan, and sure they can mana drain it, but they're not getting like a ton of mana off it. The opponent decides to just hard cast Subtlety to put Ragavan back on top of the deck, or we could choose whether to put it on top or bottom. Think about it for a while, and was going to put it on the bottom. It's still, anyway, decide to leave it on top because like, once again, it's a strong threat that doesn't reward them too much with their mana drain. Now this attack right here is a chump attack just to enable Fatal Push. So the token dying enables Revolt, and we can kill Subtlety and clear the way for our other creatures. Alright, so opponent's cracking Flooded Strand. And they have another Mystic Sanctuary, putting Prismatic Ending on top. And then put Kahira into hand. So I really love what the opponent's deck has going on. Like, just, it's very value-laden control. So we're going to try and send Ragavan out in here. Yeah, we expected the mana drain. But that clears the way for these attacks right here. The opponent has like the domain thing going on for Leyline Binding, and it also empowers Prismatic Ending. With enough islands to get the Mystic Sanctuaries going. And so anyway, and then they have Solitudes and Subtleties with lots of pitch candidates. So I just really like what they have going on in their deck. Now, I was actually shocked that they didn't Prismatic Ending the Raptor, since Kahira can block Bowmasters, but I guess they knew the contents of that. They have 1 rings, they probably have like Lorien Revealed and stuff like that, and Teferi. So Bowmasters punishes those pretty heavily, so we can't Thoughtseize them because they have ring protection, but we can Lurrus and then play a Mishra's Bauble. But the opponent found a Leyline Binding. So, yeah, decide to wait for ring protection to wear off so we can Bauble them on their upkeep. Alright, and they have a Lorien Revealed coming up. Now, fortunately for us, is like they're getting their card draw engines online, but they're at such a low life total that everything's precarious. Like, they have to deal with basically every little threat that we send out there. The opponent just replays ring and gets another round of ring protection. And they did find a Prismatic Ending, so we are out of threats, and our Lurrus is already gone. Alright, Dreadhorde Arcanist is clutch, and a Dragon's Rage Channel, so still allowing us to double spell. Now, a Wrath would be an absolute nightmare. It doesn't, I don't know. I'm not sure what control decks, if they're packing Wraths right now. Like, it seems like more of like a spot removal kind of format. Maybe they're running a couple Supreme Verdicts, but it just sort of depends. Another Mystic Sanctuary, so they're getting their money's worth out of that Prismatic Ending. Ralgren Triumph. Alright. So they found one answer. Okay, so they took care of Dragon's Rage Channeler. They still have to deal with Dreadhorde Arcanist. We found an Amped Raptor. Thoughtseize seems like the most clear thing to lead with because we can see if the coast is clear. Alright, so opponent decides just to cast Subtlety, and they just have a land in hand. So now, fortunately for us, we have a Bolt in hand to cut down Subtlety, and then Dreadhorde attack will flashback Bolt, and they're going to die in their draw step with the ring. And so yeah, the opponent packs it in. So, but yeah, if you like seeing 2-1 first strikes, please Floodwater Dam the like button, and we're on to the next one. So so this is a weak Dragon's Rage Channeler hand. I guess we have a land and creature in the graveyard with Kroxa, but we don't have any like spells to get the surveilling going. It might draw out removal. We are playing against a fellow Lurrus deck. Alright, they play Kumano Saga. Down to the Bugbears. Not the worst. I make a mistake. I run out Amped Raptor. I think it would have been better to run out Dreadhorde Arcanist, because we end up getting like a missed Raptor hit right here with the Fatal Push and no valid target. And the thing is, like, realistically, that was the only card that would have sucked right now, is Fatal Push. Everything else would have had it. So we hit the one dead card. But we knew they were going to have creatures, so I think putting Arcanist into play first to get rid of its summoning sickness, and then playing Raptor and maybe hitting something, I think would have been a little bit better sequencing So we got to see if we can come back from sort of like getting a no value off our Raptor. Playing the second Channeler here, and I'm gonna move to my second main phase just in case I get Delirium. I don't want to accidentally be forced to attack with Dragon's Rage Channeler. I want to keep them both back. So we find a Fatal Push, which I want to draw. So what I should do is just crack Bauble right now so we draw on our turn. Instead, I get way too clever and make the mistake of cracking on the opponent's turn, which means we're not drawing push until our turn. So that was just an unforced error right there. Roiling Vortex is pretty tough. Opponent has a lot of attackers coming in. And decide not to attack with the Kumano. And we can't even crack our fetch right now for like a Surveil land. Like that was just really bad. We could have Fatal Pushed the Swift Spear and had a Surveil land ready to go, and probably hit Delirium. So that was like a pretty bad error with the mistimed Bauble crack. But fortunately, our deck has a ton of removal. Yeah, we're gonna bin this Bauble because we want more action right now, and we could safely bin Kroxa as well. Like, it's useful in the graveyard, and we want, yeah, something better going on. So now we're going to send in with the Dragon's Rage Channeler. So it is dangerous doing this against burn at a relatively low life total. Like if they rip a couple bolts or bump in the Knights, like that could be it for us. I think this is another gameplay error by me. I think on our turn I should have just bolted the Swift Spear, because if they have 1 mana instant here, we are in a huge amount of trouble. And I think I should not have gambled against the opponent's prowess. It worked out in this case, fortunately for us, but that was another misplay. So despite our best efforts, we walk out with the win and move on to the next one. Alright. Lot of Thoughtseizes against a mountain. Always risky to take too much damage. I was going to snap up the Blood Crypt, but really, we should, against the red deck, we got to be careful about our life totals. We're going to get basic Swamp and hit him with Thoughtseize. Okay, so it's not like a red aggro deck, it's a red value deck. Stormfist Crusader is not one I've seen in Timeless yet. Fable is just such a value-laden card. Like, we can't answer enchantments. Like, it's just difficult. So I end up taking that with the Thoughtseize. Dark Ritual is always a gamble to leave behind in their hand, but see how bad it can get. Wow. So opponent goes Fable into Stalactite Stalker with the Descent enabled. And, we have a lot of options here. We could run out Raptor and see if something nice happens. It seems like both those creatures are fairly problematic, and so it seems like a decent turn just to use 2 removal spells. Alright, so the opponent pitches the Stormfist Crusader. It has another Fable, so it could get pretty nasty. But yeah, as I get ready to play Amped Raptor, let me know what cards from Modern Horizons 3 you've enjoyed playing. I've found a lot of great things to use in this set so far. Alright, Orcish Bowmasters is our hit. Decent, not the most insane thing ever. Gonna crack the fetch. The question is, do we Thoughtseize them or do we Fatal Push the token? And decide to Thoughtseize them. And the opponent just has a land. So we gain that information, but we don't gain value. Alright, so the opponent has 2 Fables going off right now. Alright, so they just pitched the land. We do get the Bowmasters trigger, so they didn't go too heavy on it to save their creatures. Now, Stormfist Crusader, the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's actually like a genius inclusion, because in Red-Black Scam, it pitches to both Fury and Grief. It also prompts the opponent drawing extra cards, which triggers Bowmasters and or Sheoldred. And it draws you cards as well. So the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's actually like a really awesome inclusion. So now, however, in this instance, it's working against the opponent since they're triggering our Bowmasters. But I think the intent is usually for it to go the other way around. Alright, so their second Fable flips, and two reflections of Kiki Jiki could get pretty nasty for us. Now, I decided not to cast anything in response to Thoughtseize because my suspicion was that they take Raptor, and it turns out they did. So they are doing this reflection activation with a known Fatal Push. They're probably just trying to get it out of our hand right there. So we had to remember that. Let's see if we have any good attacks. Dreadhorde is always a good attack. I mean, this is going to be incredible. Now, it's nice to save bolts for like direct damage later on, but we don't have Revolt triggered, so I can't use a Fatal Push on Reflection of Kiki Jiki. So we're sort of forced to use a bolt there if we want to kill Reflection. I'm going to put Lurrus into hand and pass the turn. My opponent's cracking Bloodstained Mire. Alright, so they have a Surveil land. Alright, Stormfist Crusaders going off. We're going to get another Bowmasters trigger. So that's the risk of running Stormfist Crusaders, that your opponent, if they're running Bowmasters, is going to benefit off that. So Dark Ritual, okay, let's see what they do with it. Into Fury. Now Fury is very strong against our deck. We have a lot of low toughness creatures, and this is pretty devastating here, killing our Dreadhorde and our Bowmasters. And it would have gotten way, way worse right here as the opponent goes to copy Fury. Luckily we had a Lightning Bolt to prevent that, but that would have been an absolute bloodbath right there, and they could have done that each turn. Not to mention Fury's its 3/3 double strike, so we have the forced chump right here. So we get the opponent to fall to 3, and I end up waffling on this decision for a long time because we could play for the longer game, like Lurrus out a Bowmasters or a Dreadhorde Arcanist, or we can try and do the like Soul Read Kroxa. I end up sort of splitting the difference and cracking to play Lurrus and use Kroxa, since we have, I think we have a Bauble in the graveyard. So end up leading with Kroxa just to see if we can lock up the win right here with like a clutch Kroxa hit, and we end up locking it up. So that's why that end game took a while, is because I was trying to decide how gung-ho to go, and turns out we were able to just get the win right there. But we were in a very strong position. Alright, shocking in a Blood Crypt. This is like the age-old question, do you lead with Dragon's Rage Channeler or with Ragavan? And since Ragavan's a good 2-mana play, decide to lead with Channeler. Not to mention we might get some Surveil value off Channeler, so. Our land situation's slightly awkward, a little, because with this basic Swamp and Takenuma, we don't have that many red sources, and our other red source is tap. Now, I go ahead and play Kumano Faces Kakazan. It's just like a free creature and gets us a Surveil. Not entirely sure I should have done that, given like Swift Spear can really shell out the damage against us. So anyway, and we were pretty choked on red mana. I wonder if I should have just Fatal Pushed the creature. Alright, so opponent plays Eidolon at the Great Revel and attacks in. And we draw another Ragavan. The mana is awkward here. Another red source would be just a lot better. Decide to just go ahead and Fatal Push the Eidolon. I'm going to take the damage. Thoughtseize is pretty horrible in this matchup, so we're going to put that in the graveyard. Not to mention it contributes to Delirium. I'm going to dash out Ragavan here. It's not a great... I guess it would have been a better blocker with the 1/1 counter, but feeling pretty good, like we can almost kill them. And I strongly consider Legend Ruling Ragavan at this moment in time. Ultimately decide not to, because it could have threatened it as a blocker and just made the opponent have to make some more complicated decisions. Opponent hammers us with Static Discharge. We fall to 11. They attack us for 2. And so I'm feeling pretty bad that I wasn't able to like block 2 of that damage with the Ragavan and just dash out a new one. So it's a tough tension as to like how much to try and kill them versus how defensive to play. Feeling like we're pretty close. We end up missing right there. But for example, like let's say we ripped like a bolt from them, we might have been able to kill them with the Kroxa plus their bolt. But I think I went a little too aggro against their deck. Alright, they pitch a Roiling Vortex, so they don't lose any life from Kroxa. At this point, I decided to Legend Rule out the Ragavan just to play it safe, but I think I probably should have done that earlier. And then play the Surveil land. So, if we can play Kroxa, we're in like pretty good shape. Surveilling that into the graveyard to try and get some more removal or something like that. Alright. Looking grim for us with the end step Lightning Bolt. And then we have a Bump in the Night. And Static Discharge and we're dead. So that was a tough one. I do think that was winnable. Our mana was getting us a little bit, like we were choked on red mana, and I think I was not as cautious as I needed to be, but I hadn't really, we saw Static Discharge, but I hadn't seen like Bump in the Nights and stuff, but usually Static Discharge is indicative of that, so we're gonna go ahead and face with the same question of Ragavan versus Channeler. Go ahead and lead with Ragavan, just for like the huge upside, but you know, I don't know in the dark which one's better to lead with. Alright, Ragavan just gets swords from our blue-white opponent. Bowmasters is interesting. Decide to play Channeler, mostly because we have a Surveil land in hand. Thoughtseize is really strong against these blue-white decks. And won't get any extra Surveil value, but we get the tap land out of the way. Alright, so we're going to do the upkeep Bauble crack right now. Let's see what they draw. Sauron's Ransom. So we know they at least are a 3-color deck. Alright, the opponent passes with 2 mana up. Playing around Spell Pierce, we're going to play Thoughtseize. And we're going to resolve our Surveil first. Yeah, we have enough lands at this point, so we're going to bin that one. Alright, the opponent has Counterspell. The question is, do we slam a safe Bowmasters to try and get them when they draw cards, or... I end up going for Dreadhorde because it's such a nasty card. I think it's an underrated card in Timeless because, again, the opponent goes ahead and swords it because it just starts flashing back all these really impactful spells like Thoughtseize and Bolt and Fatal Push. Like, it gets nasty fast for the opponent. But they go ahead and hit us with the Thoughtseize, and all of a sudden we are sort of out of threats. Now we do have our own Thoughtseize to fight back with, and we'll get a Surveil for good measure. Dreadhorde seems like a good card to keep. Now we're going to bring Lurrus to hand, so we're taking away their Thoughtseize. Though Sauron's Ransom is a little bit worrisome because it's going to get them a lot of card advantage, but the opponent doesn't have a lot of time to deploy all that. And they're shocking, so I like the boldness right here. They're hoping to get like a swords off the Sauron's Ransom, so that's why they're shocking that land in. So I'm making the piles here. It's like a Fact or Fiction, and wanted to split the Brainstorm and the Fetch, and it's looking grim to the opponent. They pack it in. So Amped Raptor really felt at home in this deck. Like, it's sort of been there all along. Like, it functioning as a Bloodbraid Elf Junior is really strong, and just fill your deck full of impactful cards and Amped Raptor will do the rest. It's not completely mindless because, you know, you saw us playing it on when the opponent didn't have any creatures, we spun into Fatal Push. Like, you do have to be a little bit mindful of that kind of stuff, but there's really so many strong things you can hit with it, and I really like how this deck works. Like, it's just very lean and efficient. We have some graveyard value and longevity with Kroxa, just a lot of good things working together. And we have game against a lot of decks. We are somewhat soft to Bowmasters by adding some extra X1s into the deck. Not to mention we're pretty soft to Fury, but as you could see in some of those games, like, it's not impossible. We could still beat those cards. It's just something to acknowledge that we are opening up vulnerabilities to those strategies. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.